It's really not worth trying to keep up with all the policy announcements in this election. It's amazing how after 14 years the Tories have suddenly found the money to do everything, after basically doing fuck all except enrich themselves, their friends and their donors. They've been good entertainment though, for all the wrong reasons, and we have had an insight into the reality behind the spin. But let's start with the unsurprising news that Nigel Farage has decided to stand for election as a Reform Party candidate. Remember, Reform isn't a political party, it's a business funded by Richard Tice, but owned by Farage. Not one Reform Party member has a say in policy or candidates. It's that frog-faced fucker's choice, which is why he could just stab Tice in the back and take over. Despite everything he says about being patriotic, if there was a war situation, Farage wouldn't be on the front line fighting for his country. He'd be the spiv wandering dark alleys, selling knocked-off watches from under his coat that have been stolen from the bodies of dead soldiers. This grifting chancer whose only income seems to be from people stupid enough to fund him in his lust for fame and the massive pension he receives from his time in the EU Parliament that he said he so much detested, had milkshake thrown over him for the second time, leaving him looking like the seagulls in Clacton had done what the electorate will hopefully do and shit all over his parade. But back to the Tories, and why not? Speaking of chancers, the new Tory candidate for Michael Gove's constituency, Ed McGuinness, made a big thing of moving into the area, only for it to be found he temporarily rented an Airbnb. Grant Shapps called Sky reporter Sam Coates live on TV. Coates took the call and asked Grant Shapps if he'd seen the just released poll that suggested he was going to lose his seat. Shapps hung up, proving that without a scripted reply, then nothing. Richard Holden, the Tory party chairman, has been parachuted 300 miles into a constituency with a huge majority, but didn't give the local members a choice. He was the only candidate. That's the only way they can avoid him not having a seat. Meanwhile, our local Tory candidate, Lee Rowley, is using the fact that his opponent comes from around 50 miles away to attack her. The Tory party have doubled down on Rishi Sunak's lie that Labour would increase tax by £2,000. Even if the figures were true, they're not. Even if the Treasury had said it was okay to use, they didn't. Even if it was happening in the first year, as he suggested, it's not. It's over 4 years, so it's only £500 a year. It still wouldn't be correct. They've taken a figure and divided it by the number of working households, but that's not how tax works. Higher earners would pay more, so lower earners wouldn't even be looking at the £500 a year. But if you take the same process to the Tory figures, the tax increase comes out at over £3,000. Didn't hear him mention that. The Tories have also been attacking Labour for the 2008 financial crisis. It was actually an international financial crisis, and here it was made worse by people like Sunak in the the financial sector, betting against the UK. In fact, he's been proved to have personally made £5 million doing it. So if it hadn't been for Labour's Gordon Brown, there would be an even worse situation. Sunak showed us just how patriotic he really is by leaving the D-Day Remembrance service early, just so he could do a TV interview, which won't even be broadcast for days. He said the itinerary was already in place, but ITV have confirmed the Tories asked for that slot, which means he never intended to be in France. He gave an interview attempting to apologise, which contained no real apology, just rinse and repeat answers and a request to not politicise it. I bet he didn't want it politicised, but Penny Mordaunt from his own party made damn sure it was, while blatantly campaigning for her own leadership bid against him in a televised debate. The pattern for the rest of the election will be the Tories vying against each other for power inside the party, while attacking Labour with lies outside. Like the Tory councillor criticising Labour candidate Bayo Obala for being in France and not knocking on doors campaigning. The guy was one of the paratroopers taking part in the D-Day commemorations, raising funds for the Royal British Legion and TrustLink's mental health charities. So maybe they could actually learn something from him. The King did attend the first day of events, resplendent with all his medals, which he's done absolutely fuck all to earn. What a bloody hypocrite. On defence, the Tories have attacked the fact that some in the Labour Party have previously said they'd get rid of the nuclear deterrent. Personally, I think it's a strength to see a cabinet with a range of opinions stated publicly. Otherwise, you get the situation we had with the Tories a few years ago, where the cabinet publicly stated the Australia trade deal was good, but then George Eustace said after leaving the cabinet how bad it actually was. And then a final example of the Tories' lack of moral compass. Frank Hester, the major Tory donor, who was criticised even by some of them, for saying Diane Abbott made him feel like killing black people has made another donation. This time it's £5 million. Have they done a decent thing and refused his money? Have they? Hell. There's a few things you can do to get better informed before the general election. First is to subscribe to this channel and share content, and why not choose notifications while you're at it? Second, listen to a podcast called The Draw, because politics doesn't have to be boring. Don't listen to the government lies, which is pretty much everything they say these days. Don't let them manipulate you. Question why they do things and how they will benefit. The third is to register to vote and make sure you have the correct photo ID. And finally, visit www.stopthetories.vote and find out how to vote tactically to get the fuckers out.